you mind coming more towards the middle, though?
Yeah.
Just because he's going to look at you.
Okay.
Like, scoot back.
What's going on, Nick? How are you? Good, man. That's just not a great spot.
I feel like if you get video, it's going to be better over here.
We're just doing that, but who knows?
So you can chop it up. You know how to do that in Windows?
I figured it would be.
That's why
Wait a
I tried
minute.
it.
No.
I just chopped it in
They
Windows.
just texted me. Cooper Ward Brissett.
I figured there would be this.
Right.
Put the table on for you guys that do the old school.
Yeah, sorry, I'm old school.
I like this thing. That's pretty cool.
I can get you one at Best Buy.
Yeah, that's right. How old is this thing right here?
Mine is
Yeah.
like probably 5 years old.
That's great.
It's not that old.
That's pretty cool.
All right, guys. So, in-the-season media availability here. As we talked about at the end of the year, ask a question. You can have a follow-up so we can get to everybody, and obviously we can circle back around if you have additional questions. But to help make this more efficient, let's try to stick to that, please. Koby?
No, great. Really glad you guys came down here for the media eval. I'm still a little heartsick, to be honest with you. It's hard to process the season ending the way it did, and that we're not still playing, but such a remarkable year for so many reasons, and I'm sure we'll go into it. But really appreciate the coverage all year. I'm sure it was really exciting for all of you as well to cover this team. It's such a fun, exciting group, and a long runway ahead of exciting basketball. So we're excited. We're really excited for the future, obviously, and the work continues. So look forward to answering any questions you might have, and again, appreciate you guys coming out.
We'll get started with our broadcast partner from Valley Sports, Serena, and we can take it.
Yeah.
When you just look back at this season as a whole, you've had a little bit of a time to reflect now. Just what stands out to you most?
So it's a great question, and again, it's trying to weigh the balance of, man, how do we not get there to that playoffs, to taking a step back to your point and say, this was a remarkable year for so many reasons. I think the thing I come back to a lot is just talking to our fans and then rival executives or coaches on the road that watch us play, and they say, man, you guys are so much fun to watch. And that's genuine. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is how this team captivated a city, put the league on notice, forced the league to put us on a national TV game because they had to. And more of those will come, hopefully next year. But they captivated the city, they captivated a fan base, and it was done the right way. They were playing the right way, unselfish, great character players that really bought in and give JB Bickerstaff a lot of credit for creating identity, a culture, a buy-in about team. This really was a team that was uniquely for Cleveland, and I think you saw the fan base really embrace this team, and it was uniquely theirs. And I think that's probably what I'm most proud of. Unselfish play. Obviously, we had a lot of individual successes, but when you guys write about the Cavs, you write about the Cleveland Cavaliers and what they did this year. I'm pretty proud about those achievements.
Do you feel like you exceeded expectations when you started the season?
I think we did. I think well documented what Vegas had us at, which is all good. We thought it's a question like do we exceed expectations? We thought we had a really incredible offseason when we obviously we signed Jared Allen to a 5-year extension. We traded for Ricky Rubio. We drafted Evan Mobley. We acquired Lowry Markkinen. Along with our young draft picks in-house, we thought we had a large injection of talent. And our top 8, if you will, if you add Kevin Love into that, were immensely talented. So we thought we had a really talented group in here. But how is that going to work? How is that going to be cultivated? And JV did such a wonderful job over the summer of sort of putting us in a position to be successful by learning together, working out together. And when we hit the ground in September, we took off as a group. And so culturally, we had a lot going on, positive in this building. And it really took off during the season. So I would say I'm surprised. I'm pleased that we exceeded expectation. But we sort of saw that turning over the summer of where this was going.
Despite not making the playoffs, do you consider this season a success?
I do. I think, we sort of rewrote expectations. And going through my notes with BJ, I didn't realize, you look back now, in February we were 35-21. That was sort of our high water mark. 14 games over 500, which we haven't seen that in a few years. And so when you look at that and to not get to the playoffs, the rash of injuries certainly derailed a lot of that. I think we finished 9-17 after that point. But success in that, we were able to find an identity. We were able to play competitive basketball. Every last game down the stretch had real consequence. You can't call it playoffs, but there was postseason basketball back in Cleveland. 2 games of monumental consequence that we're going to grow from as a group. I think we're all thinking about possessions that could have been different, what we can all have done different to get us there, and it's going to drive us. It's going to drive us to be more complete during the regular season and get to the playoffs that has been so hard for us to capture in the last few years. But we're right there, and again, I would say, a lot of team successes. We jumped from 25th in the league in defensive efficiency last year to 5th. That's a real jump, and that's an incredible testament to the players we have on the team, but also the culture that JB has put in place. We have tough-minded guys that really compete on that end. That's something that's going to stay with us for a long time. And then there's a number of individual successes that we had throughout the season, from 2 All-Stars to Players of the Week to Players of the Month, Coach of the Month. How many finalists do we have in these postseason awards? So there's a lot there that I can point to as successes. And we're really excited about what's to come next.
You were without Colin for a majority of the season. How do you characterize his importance and his place in the team's future?
So it's interesting. Who do you think was the first person out here when I walked through the door working out? Colin Sexton. Here right now, right after the season's over and still in Cleveland working out. He, in a lot of ways, was the start of not only the rebuild, but the culture that we have in place now. We asked him to do a tall task, right? 4 straight finals, and now we're sort of starting anew. And he was the start of that. And we wanted to have a place that thrived from great attitude, great work ethic, and somebody that really wanted to be in Cleveland, Ohio, and help us get back to those heights. He embodied every part of that, and he still does today. And so he, in a lot of ways, is the reason why we're here, because he started that culture for us, that every single day I'm going to get better. I'm going to bring my hard hat. I'm going to work on my skills. I don't care about the results if I'm incrementally getting better and pushing this franchise forward. So he's enormously important to us. He's been enormously important to us. To lose him, you can see throughout the year why we missed him or how we missed him. So, we owe Colin a great debt of gratitude for what he's done, the work he's put in, and he continues to put in, and an important part of this team.
I know, obviously, Karis dealt with some injuries when he got here, but when you look back at the trade, how do you evaluate Karis with this team and kind of long-term place with this group?
Yeah, Karis, listen, he got unfortunately derailed right after All-Star break. I think that's when we really wanted to reap the benefits of having him. I'll say our record wasn't great in the after, like I said, that high water mark, that has nothing to do with Karras. I also can't envision how we can be, how we would have been competitive down the stretch without Karras. Everything was put on Darius Garland for a very long time, and he helped alleviate that. We needed ball-dominant play creators outside of just Darius. And so I can't imagine playing those games without Karras helping us down the stretch. We wouldn't have been competitive in some of those games if he's not alongside Darius. So I think, it's hard. Midseason trades are hard for everybody. He had a totally different role with Indiana that he'd have here. He was coming to a place that had enormous success already, that had had roles, defined roles, guys that are having a lot of success, all-star seasons, and so to try to fit in was not easy. It wouldn't be easy for anybody, but I love what Karras brought to the table, his competitive fire. He defended. He fit right in. And again, like I said, the record is not a reflection of the trade or him, and I can't imagine how we would be going down the stretch without that talent that he provided.
And obviously, there are some decisions this summer with contracts. And I know
Yeah.
that tie around it, but
Sure.
do you see a place for Karras and Colin on this group, in your guards? Is there room for?
Yeah, I listen. The hardest part of my job is finding really good players, and guys that really want to be here. That's the hardest task that we have, and they're hard to find, right? They're just hard to find, and you can see the place for more talented ball dynamic play. Like losing Colin and Ricky were just huge blows to our team, and you could see that we missed that play creation, especially down the stretch of the season. So yes, there's a place for that level of talent, especially with the character that they bring, and the fact that both really love it here.
I just wonder, one more quick thing about Karras, though. He is kind of an ISO guy. Do you think the longer he's here, he will fit more into the sort of, your scheme?
Yeah, so look, like his strength is to go get one, no doubt, ISO scoring. But he also made some great plays in and around the basket, finding guys. He didn't get to play with Jared a lot. Jared missed the last 5 weeks, almost 19 games. Jared makes it a lot easier to play with as well. It's a little different when you're attacking the rim and you have that vertical threat at the rim. He didn't get to play with his buddy from Brooklyn a lot. So look, as a whole, I think he's not a selfish guy by any stretch, and I think he'd look to make the right play. We just need him to go score a lot more with us for his role. But no, listen, I think where we want to get to, which is the playoffs, you need that. You need that skill set. Everything breaks down. You're over-scouted. They're trying to take your best players away. Can you have someone that can go get a basket for you? And so we value his skill set very much.
And are you at the point just in the putting the team together where if a big trade came, on the radar, can you afford and, everything just to go big? I mean, you've been very aggressive during your career.
We will always look for trades that will improve the team. I love our core group. We had the third youngest starting lineup in the NBA. And then when you get to the playoffs or play-in, we were the youngest. And that says a lot for that group that can impact winning at such a young age. So, no, I'm not in a rush to try to break that up. I want to see how far they can go. They deserve that runway. But when you think about the youth of this team, 24 years or younger for a lot of them, it's exciting, and it's not something that you're on a rush to break up, especially with the bulk of your talent still being on rookie scale contracts.
This year you were underdogs. You guys kind of fed into that a little bit with the junkyard chain and things like that. Next year, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. You're not going to be underdogs. You are definitely now on the radar. So just organizationally, how do you guys, I guess, transition a little bit to, it's no longer about building a core. It's about that core realizing its level of expectation.
We want the expectation. I think this year was great because it was almost like the theme of let's emerge, right? Let's Darius Garland goes out there and has career highs across the board. He starts to captivate a city. He puts himself on the map in terms of being an all-star. His creativity, his imagination. We're emerging, right, as a franchise and as personnel, as you start to have some more names out there nationally, right? But now as a team, you're right. We're not going to surprise teams next year. We want that expectation. And I think the thing that Coach drove home at the end of it was, how can we be more consistent? How do we not have the letdowns? Some of the games we think we should have had or knew we should have had that we let up, the very best teams in the league don't give those up, or very rarely give those up. And I think there was a number of occasions where we kind of got ahead of ourselves, or we let one slip. And I think we were 2 games out of being in 6th place. So, it's that close, right? In 6th place, we don't have to play the play-in. And in our play-in situation, we played an Eastern Conference Finals team and a team with, 2 legendary players on it. So, 2 incredibly, Hall of Famers on it in their prime. So, put ourselves in that position by giving up a few of those things. So how do we be more consistent, I think, is the question organizationally. What we don't want to lose grasp of is what got us here, which is the hard work in the summer. The player development in the summer, the individualized plans in the summer. How do we get together as a group so we can work on our chemistry? That really helped us go into this season, and so we don't want to lose sight of that. We haven't accomplished anything yet, and so how do we keep that hunger, that humbleness, and attack this off season so we're ready to really hit the ground running come September? And that's when it starts for us. Usually, it's not preseason. We like to get to town early and really start to put together some continuity for the season.
If there's a positive to come out of not making the postseason, you get to keep the asset of the pick. You don't have to convey that to Indiana. You obviously were willing to give that up to make the team better. Is that where you're at now? To piggyback a little bit off Marla's question, as far as the team building goes, where you're now, you're not in the asset acquisition mode. You're willing to use those assets to bring in supplemental players, because it could be argued you don't need another young player. You need more experience around these young guys.
Yeah, I guess that's a silver lining that we get to keep the pick. No, it's all good. We negotiated it that way, so there was upside. Listen, we do an incredible job. We have, I think, done an incredible job through the draft, and taking a step back now and looking at the draft, I like the draft. I do. I really do. I'm not just saying that. Where our pick lands, can we get another? There's nothing wrong with having another young player that you can develop. In our scouting department, which is led by General Manager Mike Ganzi, my assistant GM Brandon Weems, they do a remarkable job. And so they were disappointed, but also like, okay, Koby, these are the guys that we all are excited about. A lot of them I've seen as well that we're going to be right in the mix for. So, no, I don't want to say that. Let's trade it again and get somebody else. I think there's a nice niche here for a young prospect to really grow without a ton of expectation and grow into potentially a rotational player that can help down the road. So I actually like this draft a lot, and I'm not sure what it looks like. But to Mario's question, we're super active, and we're canvassing the league and seeing what's out there.
Tom Weathers.
Well, 1 sec, let me just turn the volume up. Sorry, Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
1 sec, Tom. Tom, sorry to cut you off. 1 sec. See, if you were in person, you would have gone first. And
Go ahead, Tom. You sure?
Yep, there we go. Perfect. Sorry.
Thanks. Hey, Koby. Good. So you didn't mention Evan Mobley yet, and I was just curious as to what kind of development did you see in Evan, especially down the stretch, and what do you want to see from him this summer that he can carry forward into his second season?
Yeah, Evan had a remarkable year. Obviously, it's no surprise he's a finalist for Rookie of the Year. Sort of like you guys got to know him throughout the year from his play and his his post-game press conferences that he was in a lot of. We got to learn about him as well. And look, I think the thing that we have wonderful character people in this building that come from wonderful backgrounds. When you think about the Garlands, the Sextons, the Okoros, the Mobleys are no different. They are just incredible people. And his mother, Nicole, was here for almost every single game. The only time she missed a home game was to watch her son Isaiah play in the Pac-12 tournament. And then the father came, Eric came after their season, another run into the NCAA tournament. He coaches at USC. And you could just see just an incredible background of foundation that Evan comes from. Both are educators, incredible humility, fun people to be around, and quiet, stoic confidence that doesn't rub as any sort of ego or arrogance, but they know how good they are. It's really remarkable, a really remarkable family that Evan comes from, and his parents have raised both their sons incredible. And so, we're very fortunate to have him here for a lot of different reasons. I think he's just an incredible human being to start. And then you add the skill set. You have the foundation. You add the skill set to a 7-footer that can do everything. And I think the thing that really drove this forward for us was he makes winning plays on every possession. And the last game of the season, the 20-year-old who we played a ton of minutes and he had to have been exhausted. The play of the game for us that gave us a chance was when he tracked down DeAndre Hunter and ran 94 feet and pinned his shot to the basket, to the backboard. How many 20-year-old rookies are doing that? How many 20-year-old rookies are thinking the defensive end or that play to save a game instead of what I can do on the offensive end? So that injection of just winning attitude, winning plays on every possession, stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet from a 20-year-old is just remarkable. And so it's on us to continue to develop him, to come up with an individualized plan for his strength and conditioning. He couldn't keep weight on because we played him 40 minutes a night. This offseason will be good for him. But again, he played his whole rookie year at 20 years old. The future is incredibly bright for him and for us. Is another high character guy that loves it here. So we're excited. I'm glad you brought up Evan. In terms of what he means for this franchise.
You partially answered my follow-up, which was, does that give you the most confidence that you can keep that chemistry and togetherness together, Koby, in the character guys that you have, that they have those family backgrounds, that they already have that work ethic instilled within them before they even got to you?
They love playing with each other, and I think you can feel that. I think Evan came into a culture of the first time he met his teammates were in Las Vegas for Summer League, and he entered the gym, and the first guys he saw were Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Dean Wade, Jared Allen, Dylan Windler. Everybody from the varsity was out in Vegas. That's the first thing he saw. And he was like, wow, okay. They didn't have to be out in Vegas. They didn't have to be at that practice. That's the first thing Evan saw. And so right away he said, okay, this is the culture that the Cleveland Cavaliers have in place. I like this. This is about getting better, right? This is about finding my best self in Cleveland. And so that's the first time he met his teammates. They all called him, of course, right after the draft. But we're out in Vegas a week later, and they get to meet these wonderful young men. And I think it's only grown since then. And it's part of what we're trying to do here in Cleveland. Bring incredible, great character guys that want to be here and help this culture grow. It's not just on us. I can talk about all I want. It's what they want, and they've done a great job of growing that culture for us.
Koby, another Evan question
Yeah.
for you. I guess the fact that you guys were able to play him alongside Jarrett, how much was that a luxury in terms of his development? And with that three big lineup that you guys kind of became known for this season, I guess how confident were you guys early on that you had something special with that?
Yeah. Evan played alongside other big men for his entire career. In fact, when he was really young, he was super tall, but he'd always play up a few levels. So he would play point guard, even though he was big, or he'd play alongside another big man, or he played alongside his brother. So we had a lot of data that could show that not only could he play four, he can potentially play some three, he can play some five, he can guard on the perimeter, do all these multifaceted things. So it was for us a luxury in that we had, and Jared Allen gives us that luxury as well because he can really move his feet. Second best rim protector in the NBA this year. And so to put those two together was really exciting for us. And I was going to work on the offensive end, but we were going to be pretty damn good on the defensive end, right? So, certainly a luxury with Evan to see how those two are going to work. And that was certainly going to be a mainstay of the lineup. To your question about Lowry, Markkanen at the three, that was JB being crazy and tossing out a lineup in preseason and say, I kind of like this. This tall ball is this identity we can go with. The reason we can go with it is they can move their feet and they can guard, and we can switch. And so we went with it. And I'll say the other part about finding that big man lineup was how great Kevin was in preseason. We had to find a place for Kevin Love to play this year. With how he came back, his attitude, what such great shape he was. Kevin played every single game this year save for COVID. So non-COVID related illness, he did not miss a game. And that's remarkable for him. I think it speaks to him obviously accepting his role, but also reduced minutes, a lot less usage, and he thrived. And I'll say I think Kevin coming back with that competitive nature, the acceptance of his role, made us push to see, okay, how can we get them all on the floor? And so that moved Lowry to the three, and then Lowry showed he can guard. It's not typical. He's a 7-footer that we're asking to do a lot. It helps to have the two bigs behind him, but they all bought in, and I think there's a bright future ahead with that group.
And then to follow up on Kelsey's question earlier about Karras and Colin, I guess you haven't seen them play together, obviously, in a game situation. What gives you so much confidence that is something that could potentially work?
They want to win. They want to win. They play the right way. They want to win. Unfortunately for Colin, before he went down, he didn't get a chance to really play with this group. We were 7-4 with him off a really tough road trip. So it wasn't like people say, well, we were okay when Colin went down. Well, I wish we had Colin those last 26 games when we were struggling. So he hasn't had a chance, and he deserves the chance to play with this group as a whole and play winning, meaningful basketball. And you're going to need that fire. You're going to need that talent, and they're about the right things. If I thought there was a selfishness there, something that didn't click, we certainly wouldn't be thinking about not just Colin or Karras, but just it's fragile. And I think this group has something really special brewing. And so, a lot of ways as a GM, sometimes you just got to stay out of the way, right? Stay out of the way. Don't tinker with things you don't have to. Add the right people that have the right character, that add to the locker room. We say it all the time, we want fountains, not drains. One drain can suck the energy out of a building, can suck the energy out of a locker room. We have all fountains. Luckily, it's a rare occurrence where everyone's a fountain. Everyone that comes in here has a positive energy. And I think that's what you've seen. You've seen this joy and this fun place to be in, a fun basketball team. So believe me, I would, if there was something there that didn't click, I would certainly have a red flag, but I don't see that.
Thanks. Joe.
Koby, heading into the offseason, personnel-wise, is there an area of the team or even a position group that you guys are looking to bolster?
It's a good question. I think, there's a few positions that we certainly always are targeting. Shooting is certainly always something that's interesting for us. We certainly know how JB wants to play with size and length, so we'll look for that. But I also, I want this team to appreciate the success they have and give them a chance to grow even more. There's no ceiling right now. Darius Garland's 22 years old. Evan's 20. Jared's turning 24. Did Jared turn 24 yet? Jared Allen's still 23 years old. Think about that. Larry Markkinen's 24. Isaac Okoro's 21. So it's let's see what the next step is for these guys as well before we just sort of. It'd be hard too if I went out and said, okay, let me acquire X player. I don't know if they're going to beat out Lamar Stevens. I don't know if they're going to beat out Dean Wade. Those guys showed a lot at the end of the bench. So let's not forget about those guys as well.
Follow up on that. What do you want to see out of Isaac in year 3?
So Isaac, we want to unlock him. We need to unlock him more on the offensive end. There's so much more he can do. Last year, towards the end of the season, we saw his offensive evolution. We put the ball in his hands more. Obviously, Colin and Darius were out, so we had to use that playmaking more. So it's on us to unlock his offensive ability. But you saw tremendous growth out of him. The shooting piece really evolved post All-Star. I think he shot 44% from 3 post All-Star, which that's a lot of games. And obviously, we know what he brings to the table from a defensive standpoint. His attitude, his tenacity, his toughness. We need that, especially when we get to the playoffs. So we just need to figure out how to unlock him on the offensive end. That's on us.
Tim.
Over here, Koby.
Hey.
Hey, how are you? So I wanted to ask you about what Joe kind of took my question, but about roster. Sorry.
Sure.
But you went from 22 to 44 this year. What'll be the key to take another step next year? Have you honed in on that as of yet?
I think the it goes back to Chris's question about what can you learn and was this year a success, and there's some disappointment. Again, having the third youngest starting lineup, how do we get more consistent from that group? How do they learn from their disappointments at the end of the season? How do they lock in more? It's hard to win as a young team. And so how do we keep making those steps to get better? And I think sense of urgency, realizing these opportunities don't always come around. I think they realized that was taken away from them at the end. Finding more consistency from our young talent will be the next step. And that I think that means more wins. I think holding ourselves more accountable every day to get better. So, did we?
No, we're good. You keep going.
Okay.
I just had a follow-up.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier letting some games get away
Yeah.
that you overlooked.
Yep.
Another thing that stands out are double-digit leads
Yes.
that got away. Is that simply chalked up to inexperience, and what do you do to kind of reverse that trend?
I think, there's a few things. Is one, you got to be a pretty good team to get those double-digit leads to start. I think a lot of those, we started out, so with the game, we start out, it's a different look for offenses. And I think we jump out to leads pretty early just because of that. It's not, we're different. You have 3 7-footers out there. You're trying to figure us out. That being said, we don't want to give away those leads that we get early on in the game or get midway through the game. And so you can chalk that up to youth. That's not an excuse we want to use. They're just experiences that we have to get better at. And they're managing the game. Darius getting better, sort of managing how we do a possession, how we slow down the game within the game. All those experiences we'll get better at. And then we got to learn how to really press the go button, even when we're up double digits. And that, not let the 20-point lead get to 15, get to 5, but the 20-point lead get to 25. That's the next step for us, and we'll get there.
Chris.
Koby, around this time last year, you were talking about you just want to be involved in meaningful games down the stretch, and you want to be in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
What's next for the organization?
Listen, I think the overwhelming response to, me and JB met with every player before they left. This was the first time that they didn't all have plans right after the season. Think about that. That usually the season, 2-3 weeks, a week from now we're done. So Cancun, whatever it is, Cabo. This is the first time you ask each man, they're like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me think about it. I didn't think we'll be done yet. So that already shows you their disappointment because they wanted to keep playing. And I think that taste of the 2 postseason games and know how close we were, they're going to tell you. They're going to say we want playoffs next year. I'm not going to dictate that, but I think that's to a man why they were all disappointed, why they all didn't have postseason plans. They will find something to do, but there was nothing booked, and I think that was a step for us, certainly this year.
You said you're not going to dictate the playoffs thing as the goal for the team. Why not? When you got so close to it.
Let me get with my guys in the beginning of the year next year when we get together. Maybe it's in Vegas. Maybe it's in Summer League, and I can tell you, I don't want to speak for them, but once we get together and we map out our goals together, it's too soon, I would say. We're right there. I don't want to, say this. Part of our evolution would certainly be playoffs next year. But let me get with the group, and I'm sure that will probably be our stated goal next year.
Koby, you mentioned our finalists in the most improved player, the rookie of the year, and 6th man of the year. Is there anything JB could have done other than winning 22 more games than last season and lead one of the youngest crews in the league to at least be considered one of the finalists? Or is it more like the press making up for Monty Williams not getting anything last year?
Yeah, listen, like everything else, like these awards are tremendously competitive. There's no clear-cut MVP. There's no clear-cut most improved, rookie of the year. You go through it. I think JB garners a lot of respect from his peers. Again, you go around the league and talk to various teams and their staff members and their coaches. They tell you with detail, wow, look what you guys are doing. These are really positive steps. JB has done a wonderful job at XYZ, the culture, the defense. You guys play with purpose. That's meaningful to us. And listen, he won NBA Coach of the Month, which is the first. We had a lot of firsts for a while, and that was a huge first for us. I don't think the way we finished probably hurt his campaign. No fault of his own. We lost some guys. He'll get some votes. And certainly well deserved. But we're not here without what JB did for us and the culture he's instilled, and so his time will come.
Is it as simple? You mentioned respect. Is it as simple as the Cavs showing consistency in winning to get the respect from the league, from the media, from the peers?
Well, I think these wonderful people over here put us on, definitely covered us well and started saying, hey, listen, come, you guys have to watch what's going on here. Pounded the table a little bit, so I have to thank our media partners, obviously, and Beats and Nationals and locals that cover us. I think what really elevated our status was the All-Star Week. We had players in almost every event. You had 2 All-Stars and first-time All-Stars and Darius and Jared. You had Rising Stars and Isaac and Evan. And then we had the Rising Stars Challenge, the Skills Challenge that we won with an Evan Mobley half-court winner. We were not in the dunk contest, which was a good thing. But everything else we were involved in, and it was such a great showcase for the city, for our franchise. We're all still rocking our All-Star gear because it was such a great week for us. So I think we put ourselves on the map, and then it's up to us to prove it, right? We got to go out and prove it. We got to garner the attention. We got to come out next year, win more basketball games, and then all the accolades will come. But I think people realize we have something special brewing here in Northeast Ohio.
We've talked a lot about the chemistry, and obviously we could see it. But when you've drafted guys, when you've acquired guys, is that like a focus for you guys? Is like the character of these people, because we've seen it have such a genuine effect on the success of the team?
No, absolutely. We go pretty deep with our intel and sort of how if we're going to draft a player or trade for a player, what they would bring here. And now I think it's sort of part of who we are, and so I think it's certainly very, very important. It's something that we go really, really deep on. It's something we have a lot of pride for. I told our, as disappointing as some of their faces were, right? Darius, you should be proud. Like, be prideful of what you've created here. This has become a destination. People want to play with you guys. They see how much fun the team's having, and they know what a great runway this is. People talking about that's all you guys. And so I think it's something we should have pride and be proud of, and excited for the future because of that culture that they put in place.
Kind of along those lines of that culture, I know this weekend, like Kevin brought up, they had already talked about as a group getting together in the off season and all these plans they have. I guess from your perspective, how important is that this is like a player-led thing in the off season to have that mentality, and then just what goes through your mind when you hear they want to do that badly already?
First, they pick incredible cities that they want to go visit together. But no, I'm not saying it's cliche. Like, they generally love each other, love playing for each other. It's a selfless group, and you can't make it up, and that's why it's so fragile. And in a lot of ways, just trying to stay out of the way and let that sort of grow on its own. I've sort of pushed enough, and now it's to the point where it's player-led, and that's where you want to be. Player-led leadership. And they have a text chain, and they have a lot of plans, and certainly we'll help facilitate it where we can or if we can. But let that take fold and continue on into the future. And there's such a young core with some great veterans sprinkled around that we think we have a great runway, and those things do matter. Getting together in off-season matters. Getting together early in Cleveland in September matters. Being together in Vegas matters for Summer League. It certainly mattered to us. So, we hope those things continue.
Jeff Shudell.
Yeah, normally you can hear me here. Can you hear me or not?
Yeah, yes. but to ask a question, you got to come off. You got to come off camera.
Right. The computer. That's what I'm asking. Does anybody need surgery, Koby, after this season?
No.
So can you give us more health updates on? We know there's Jared's finger.
Yeah.
He told you that about 70%.
Yep.
How about the health of him and everybody else going forward?
Yeah, and listen, I think we were all banged up like any other team throughout the year, and the time off now will be great. Everyone's projected to have, be ready for training camp if that's sort of the marker. But Jared will get a few months here to really let the finger heal. To your question, he thought it was important to come back at whatever capacity he could come back to give us a chance, and he'll have plenty of time to rest and rehab and be full strength, as will the rest of our guys. Darius dealt with some things. This rest will be great for him as well. Isaac down the stretch, like, we were all banged up, and I think it was a lot of adversity because of the injuries, but we found a unique toughness, ability to galvanize around those. We didn't use it as an excuse. We used next man up mentality, and I think you really saw some of the guys at the end of the roster really step up and help us. So as much as the injuries were disappointing and they suck, to be quite honest with you, and candid, we found a level of toughness through the adversity that I think really propelled this team for our identity. So, but to your question, no surgeries, and everyone should be getting healthy on their own timetable.
Thank you.
Spencer.
Spencer Davies, basketball news. What's up, Koby?
Hey, Spencer, how you doing?
Good, man, good. You kind of touched on it briefly earlier, but you were mentioning pretty much, keeping this group together, continuity and all that. But with the veterans, guys like Ed Davis and Ricky earlier in the season, you obviously had Rondo come in late, and then Kevin being the forefront of that. How do you go about making sure that behind-the-scenes impact continues with this team? Because they're still young, and even though they get luxury of that experience, that's also a huge part of building.
I agree. Look, you mentioned Ricky Rubio was enormously important to us, and I know we didn't have him for the vast majority of the year, but I don't think we're here without his injection of basketball play, but also leadership. And so when we went out this offseason, we looked at who can help us take that step forward. We all wanted to make that Ricky trade for a lot of the reasons that you talked about. Same thing why we wanted to bring in Ed Davis. That was a big thing for Coach Bickerstaff, knowing that so the strength of our team was going to be in our big man position. And so how do we have a vet that's been there? And Ed was incredibly diligent. He was the first one in. The young guys saw his work ethic every day, whether he was playing or not. And so his stoic leadership, his being seen, not always heard, his consistency, I think, resonated. So we need to make sure we're still doing that. As young as we are, we got to make sure we still have some veterans that are about the right things, but that can also still play and help us. And so those are big considerations going into the offseason.
Evan.
Evan Demerol, Facebook News. Hey, Koby, it's good to see you.
Hey, Evan, how you doing?
Good. I don't know if you touched on it, the Zoom feed cut up, but how impressed were you with Darius this season? A lot of people expect guards and players in general to make that leap in the third year, but at least for myself, I didn't quite expect him to have this type of leap into almost the elite category in the Eastern Conference.
Well, Evan, I appreciate the question. And he was elite by so many metrics. He was ninth in the league in net rating on off court. He impacted winning on such an amazing level. It was really hard to not have him on the court. You can see, and so for me, it's obviously I'm really proud of him, the work ethic. He also comes from an incredible foundation. The Garlands are an amazing family and super humble, hilarious as well. Incredibly, they just exude joy, and you can see where Darius gets that. But I'm one of the rare people in the world that have probably watched every minute of Darius Garland basketball, right? Dating back to Vanderbilt, when he played 4.5 games. So I've watched literally every minute of his career. And so when people ask, are you surprised about this jump? I'm not, because I've seen his flashes early on in his career, and even his rookie year, which much maligned rookie year, there was amazing flashes there. He turned those flashes into large stretches his sophomore year. So after All-Star break last year, he was one of the best guards in the East for a long stretch. So he's turned flashes into stretches, and then this offseason we saw him on the select team where he absolutely belonged. He grew and he played alongside and competed with some of the best guards in the NBA. And now he turned it into a season, right? So you had great flashes to great stretches to an elite season. And so I've seen this growth and this progression out of him. I think the thing that we're really excited about from him is his leadership, and how his voice has grown, how he's led a franchise, his toughness. We put a lot on his shoulders this year. There were times that he had to play the whole entire second half for us to get that game home. You take him off the floor, we had no chance. So he's grown immensely. Like I said, we wouldn't have drafted him 5th if I didn't see the talent level. But he's grown each year. And again, if you look back to post All-Star last year, that month, that stretch there where he was consistently putting up 21 and 8, that turned into a full year of about 22 and 9 at a really, really high clip. And the creativity, the imagination, he's just an exciting player, and he's going to be in Cleveland for a long time, and he embraces it here. He loves it here, and we're fortunate that he's a Cavalier.
One more from me. In a similar vein to Darius, a quote that's always stuck with me is when Ricky first spoke with us that his goal with Darius was, yes, you had a great season. What can we do to make sure you have an even better season the following year? In a similar vein to you guys, you guys had a great season by all stretches of the imagination. What do you think you guys can do externally and internally to ensure that you maybe just don't fall flat next year, build upon what you have, and have an even better season of next year?
Yeah, so it's hard. The NBA is hard, man. And that's why I'm trying not to give Chris, the expectation right off the jump. We'll get there, but it's hard. The East has gotten better, right? We weren't supposed to be in that mix, right? The East has gotten better, and will continue to get better. And some teams that aren't going anywhere. So we have to navigate that. And like I said, we can't lose sight of what got us here, which was the hard work. The daily positive habits that we're infusing in our young athletes at a young age, so they can be career vets at these daily positive habits. So those are things that we're trying to infuse every day. Don't lose sight of those things that got us here. And I think as well, this year of experience, we're going to take another step forward just because of the experience of this year. Darius is going to get better. Evan's going to get bigger, stronger. He's going to get better. Jared Allen, like I said, still 23, turning 24 like in a couple days, I think. So the core, the nucleus is still young and growing, and I think that's going to lead to even better basketball down the road. But don't lose sight of what got us here. Make sure we hold ourselves accountable and continue to grow that way. And I think that translates to more wins.
Marla.
Have you talked to JB about maybe having an offensive coordinator?
Well, I think. Do you have? Are you down on our offense? Is that what?
Well, no, I know you need.
Yeah.
Getting scoring is one of your priorities, but I'm also thinking about just
sure.
Like how you use the rotations and just
I think a large part of this, and again, this is not an excuse, but when we were 35 and 21, when we were healthy, we were crushing teams, and that was with Ricky at the helm at that second unit. It was almost like we had two different lineups. We'd have your defensive lineup that would slow things down and beat you up on the glass and get you taking tough shots, and then Ricky would come in with Kevin and we'd run the score up, and we had a wholly different dynamic. You lose a player of that imagination, creativity. I don't care how good you are from an offensive standpoint in terms of planning. You lose that level of passing and of skill, your offense is going to take a hit. And so we need to figure out how to have that injection of backup that can come in and play, create, and make the game easier for us. And we'll get better on that end. But I don't forget those games where we were playing in the high 120s and they called us the Cavaliers. And at that point, it had nothing to do with the offensive coordinator. It was how we were playing and the personnel.
Chris.
Koby, during this rebuild, this is one of the first times that you're going into an off season following a winning season. So, how does that change, if at all, your own off-season approach to building this thing?
Fortunately for us, we have a lot of work to do, so I can't just rest on a winning season. We have 3 draft picks coming up. We have a really important free agency coming up. We have an incredible chairman in Dan Gilbert that constantly is pushing us to get better, not only on the basketball floor but off the floor, resources, facilities, how we're imagining the future of this franchise. So there's a lot of work to be done from my standpoint in terms of just how we think about where this franchise is going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and putting those plans in place now for that. So we have a lot of work to do. And in terms of, there's ways to incrementally improve the roster. There's ways to improve the services for our guys. There's ways to improve our facilities. There's ways to improve the personnel in the building. So all those are challenges that I'm tasked with and report to Dan on and show him progress and show him where we can get better at. So, it's not a time to rest, even though we did have a winning season.
Is it more of a short-term mindset than a long-term mindset?
I think it's both. I think short term, certainly, how do we incrementally get better to get over that hump? but absolutely thinking about where we want this franchise to be on a national and global standpoint for years to come.
Kobe, you talked about wanting to keep this group together, and you were asked earlier about Colin and Karras, and that the pie is only so big. There's only so many slices you can kind of get out of that. And the cap obviously works a little different than the NFL, where you just create space with a stroke of a pen.
Sure.
So I guess my question is, how do you feel about just your flexibility and the ability to not only keep what you have, but also have enough left over to where you can, bring in some.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, the way we sort of built through the draft, we do have really good flexibility to keep our players. We're never going to be a cap space team. You're never going to see me sort of gut the roster so I can have cap space to then go get said free agent. The way we built this was building to the draft, rookie scale contracts being enormously valuable, because after that rookie scale contract is up, you get to keep them over the cap. And so how we're built, our most important players will get to keep. And we have fortunate that, again, our chairman, Dan Gilbert, won't let me let a good player walk. He just won't let that happen. And so figure it out. Figure it out is what you're tasked to do, which is a great thing. I mean, when he says figure it out, it's using a positive way. And so that's what we have to do, figure it out on the basketball floor. From a financial / resource standpoint, we know we can keep everybody.
Last question, Christos. Christos. Christos.
Going once.
Christos. Okay, everybody, let's go wrap it up.
Evan have last week's good. Okay, great. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Hopefully see you guys out in Las Vegas as well. And we appreciate it. Great season and a lot more fun to come. So we appreciate your coverage. Thank you.
Thanks, Kobe.
Thank you.